Because IMF and World Bank, you have the final say. We don't have no say.
That was President Ruto, pleading desperately at the Summit for a new global financing pact, Paris 2023. These helpless cries were met by Kristalina Georgieva, the managing director of IMF. For the very first time, President Ruto was confronted by the true face of a monster four of his predecessors had wrestled with. After just 1 year in office, he wanted out of the IMF.
We want another organization of equals, where you have as much say because you pay, as much as we do because we also pay.
Fast forward to 2024.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm here to address you. You must go. Ruto must go.
Ruto must go. A chant that rocked the entire country. And somewhere in that anger, one name kept coming up: the IMF.
I'm pretty sure the finance bill wasn't proposed by Ruto. It was proposed by the IMF.
Blamed as the invisible hand behind the tax hikes, the austerity, and the rising pressure on ordinary citizens. But here's the strange part. As the protest filled the streets, as anger turned towards parliament, the IMF remained distant, untouched, almost abstract. So what exactly is IMF's role in Kenya? How does an institution thousands of kilometers away end up influencing the price of food, fuel, and survival? I went looking for answers, and what I found goes back 60 years. Let's start with something familiar: a circle. Members contribute every month. Money is pooled. When you need help, you borrow. When you want to grow, you borrow. And because it's your circle, you're not just a borrower, you are an owner. Now zoom out. Imagine a circle, but for countries. That's the International Monetary Fund. 190 member countries, one global pool, and where there's trouble, a country borrows. So far, it sounds the same, but here's the difference: power. In a circle, members are mostly equal. At the IMF, power depends on how much money you put in. The United States hold more voting power than the entire continent of Africa combined, and every loan comes with a condition. A circle loan, you borrow, you repay. An IMF loan comes with conditions: cut spending, increase taxes, remove subsidies. Those conditions tell you everything about what the IMF actually is. It's not a partner, it's a creditor, and it will recover its money even if impoverishing the people is the consequence. Kenya joined in 1964, 1 year after independence. For 15 years, the relationship was quiet. Kenya was growing. Coffee prices were strong. The IMF was a distant safety net nobody thought they would need. Then Tehran happened. Tehran, 1979. The Iranian Revolution topples a government. And thousands of miles away, in a country that had nothing to do with Persian politics, Kenya's fate was quietly changed. The aftermath triggered a massive global oil shortage.
Lines are completely around the corner.
I'm in a line 2 hours and I can't get gas. This is baloney.
In the 1970s, Americans experienced an energy crisis. It had a big impact on people's
Prices
lives.
doubled almost overnight. For a country that imported nearly every drop of fuel it used, this was not an inconvenience. This was a body blow. Moi had inherited a stable economy, but global forces were pulling it apart. Oil prices up, exports earning up, debt rising, and a president making promises that the budget couldn't keep up. Under President Dalian Arap Moi, barely 1 year in office, the state was expanding. New projects, new promises, new political expectations across a country that had just changed its hands for the very first time since independence. And many of those promises were not in the budget. At rallies across the country, commitments were made in real time. A school here, a road there, a hospital somewhere else. Treasury officials were present, not to advise, not to approve, but to take notes, because every promise at the microphone will eventually need funding. Revenue couldn't keep up with that spending. Coffee and tea prices, Kenya's lifeline, had collapsed. Debt was rising and corruption was quietly draining what remained. So Kenya did what countries in that position do. It called the only lender that would answer, the IMF. And the IMF had a ready solution. It always does. Structural adjustment programs, cut public spending, privatize, remove subsidies, open markets. On paper, sensible economics. A country spending more than what it earns needs to adjust. But those cuts had to come from somewhere. And they always came from the same two places, healthcare and education. Not because they were wasteful, but because they were large. Cut them and the spreadsheet looks better, fast. No currency crisis, no market collapse, just quieter suffering, spread across millions of people who had no lobby in Washington. User fees were introduced in public hospitals. What had once been a public good now came with a price at the door. Families were expected to pay for books, for facilities, for the basic right of a child to sit in a classroom. The number stabilized, the indicators improved, and the people got poorer. Every decimal point of deficit reduction had a human address. A family in Kisumu, a child in Eldoret, a mother in Mathare who had stopped going to the clinic because she couldn't afford the fee they introduced to make the budget look cleaner. And from this moment, the relationship between Kenya and IMF will never just be about economics again. It will become political. August 1st, 1982. It's a Tuesday morning. Kenyans wake up to something they had never had before.
There should be no movement in town. The government has now been taken over by the military until further notice.
Rebel soldiers on the radio announcing the government had been overthrown. The coup attempt lasts less than 12 hours.
Yale yaliyotokea leo asubuhi sasa imeangamizwa na jeshi.
Moi's government survives, but over 100 people are killed. Shops looted. The University of Nairobi is shut down. Hundreds arrested. The official explanation, a disgruntled Air Force faction, a poorly planned rebellion. But zoom out. Look at what was happening in the streets before that morning. Maize subsidies had been removed. One of the very first IMF conditions. Within 6 months, the price of unga jumped 40%. In a country where maize is not a side dish but the daily survival staple, that wasn't inflation. That was hunger-made policy. The coup attempt didn't come from nowhere. It came from society under pressure. Economic pressure, IMF pressure, packaged as reform, felt as punishment. Moi survived, but he had seen something. The IMF conditions weren't just unpopular. They were very dangerous. They created a kind of desperation that put soldiers in radio stations, and yet he had no choice but to keep signing. The cycle continued. July 7th, 1990, Sabasaba. Activists attempted to hold a rally at Kamukunji grounds, demanding multi-party democracy. The government banned it. People showed up anyway. 20 protesters killed. Over 1,000 arrested. Among those detained, Kenneth Matiba and Charles Rubia, held without trial. Sabasaba became a symbol, a debt that would echo generations. In 1990, then 2024, then July 2025, when it happened again. Different decades, the same unresolved pressure. By the early 1990s, the relationship had changed in a way nobody anticipated. The Cold War was ending, global priorities shifting, and the IMF was no longer just pushing balance sheets. It was now linking financial support to governance. In plain language, it wanted democracy. For years, Kenya had been a one-party state. KANU, Moi, unchallenged. By 1990, that was no longer acceptable to its international lenders. Aid was frozen, loans delayed, reform politically or lose access to funding. Was this purely external pressure? No. Was it purely internal? Also no, it was a convergence. The pro-democracy movement that Sabasaba had electrified, meeting international financial leverage at the exact same door. And here is where the story gets complicated, because when political space was opening up, economic pressure didn't ease, it intensified. The next phase had one word at the center: privatization. State companies, once protected, locally anchored, were told to compete in open markets or be sold. Tariffs lowered, import restrictions reduced. Let the market decide what survives. But the markets decided things nobody had voted for. Take the textile industry, for example. Factories employing thousands in Kisumu, in Thika, in Eldoret. Then markets opened, suddenly competing with mitumba, second-hand clothes at prices no local manufacturer could match. One by one, factories slowed. They went quiet. They shut. The same pattern: paper, sugar, refining. Some sold to well-connected buyers at prices that raised questions nobody ever wanted to answer. Some collapsed entirely. Some never came back. To supporters, necessary medicine. Inefficient systems cleared out. To the workers, it was abandonment. The country opened up not for their benefits, but for someone else. Necessary reforms and harmful implementations can coexist, and in Kenya's case, they did, consistently, across decades. The questions being asked on the streets in 2024 were not new. Kenyans had been asking these questions since the 1980s.
Ruto was sworn in as Kenya's 5th post-independence president.
New president.
I, William Samoei Ruto.
Same room, same institution, same power dynamics. William Ruto elected on a Hustler Nation platform.
I want to thank God because a village boy has become the president of Kenya.
In Paris, pleading for a better deal.
Level where even countries like Kenya pay. We do not want anything for free.
The IMF listens politely, and then the conditions remain.
We want those resources controlled not by IMF and World Bank. Because IMF and World Bank, you have the final say. We don't have no say.
Back home, the finance bill was drafted. New taxes on bread, on cooking oil, on sanitary pads, on mobile money transfer, millions used because they don't have bank accounts. The bill had Nairobi's signature on it, but its logic was written somewhere else. A generation that had never lived through Sabasaba, never watched a factory close, never felt the first oil shock, took to the streets anyway, because the pressure their parents and grandparents absorbed for decades had compounded, and it had finally found them. The parliament was stormed. The bill was withdrawn.
2024 finance bill, and it shall subsequently be withdrawn.
Ruto survived, barely. And through it all, one building in the city remained untouched. No crowds, no placards, no broken windows. A quiet office in Upper Hill, the IMF's office in Kenya. Staff who went home safely every evening. Not because the institution bears no responsibility, but because 4 decades of economic pain had never come with a face most people knew. It came through budget lines, through finance bills, through presidents who signed things in rooms ordinary Kenyans were never invited to. This is how IMF operates. Not loudly, not visibly, but consistently across Kenyatta, Moi, Kibaki, Uhuru, and now Ruto. 5 presidents, 1 institution. Always present, always conditioning, always somehow still owed. The protests of 2024 were the loudest Kenya has ever had in generations. Young, connected, fearless. But until the anger finds the right address, the cycle will just